Welcome back to Fade to Chat, Golden Age Cinema. Yeah, in this episode, Cindy and I are going to plunge into the swinging 60s. In the 60s, I was between 3 and 13 years old, I guess, if I do the math well. So it wasn't too swinging for me. But this is sort of a madman-esque view of the world. It's comedy mixing a bachelor fantasy, satire, comic strip, meta storytelling, and a commentary on marriage expectations at that time. The movie we're talking about is How to Murder Your Wife, with Jack Lemmon, Virna Lisi, and Terry Thomas, I think, in the lead. I remember watching this film. I grew up in Chicago, and in the afternoons, what was the ABC's Channel 7 in Chicago, after school, they would play old movies. Mm-hmm. And I think that's where I first saw that. I saw a lot of these films and a lot of stuff from the Golden Age. I'd come home from school and plop myself in front of the television and watch what was ever up. And I think this was one of the movies that I saw. And my memory of it, I've probably seen it maybe 3 times or 4 times in my life, including the watch I did yesterday. My memory of it was always enjoyable up until yesterday's watch. And it's probably been 20 years since I've seen the film. So I'm curious, Cindy, what is your reaction? And tell me a little about the history of what you have had in terms of this film.
Okay, well, I'm sorry to hear that because this to me was I'll just say one of my all-time favorites. I had kind of forgotten about it. I hadn't watched it in years. And when we talked last time about what movie to talk about, we both were excited about this one. And I thought, oh, I can't wait to watch it again. And I really enjoyed it. Yeah, I'm surprised that you had that reaction because I really enjoyed this movie.
Well, it's not a movie that you can find a lot of information about. Maybe you found more than I did, but there were some things that when I was watching it, I got uncomfortable with. It is really a male-centric,
Well, yes.
misogynist kind of worldview that they attempt to make funny. And maybe I've gotten a little more sensitive to that over the last 20 years, which is why I found it funny maybe 20 years ago. Kind of cute and charming, funny in the past. And
Hmm.
this time I just had a hard time saying, if I shared this with my daughter, she would go nuts. Um, my son
Yeah,
would go, yeah, it's old stuff, Dad. Um,
yeah.
so
Yeah,
yeah,
I can see why you would say that. It was very, very much um, how it was during that time period.
yeah,
And it doesn't fly today, that's for sure. Mm.
yeah. There were a couple of lines in the film that, and we'll get to that when we get to it.
Mhm.
A couple of lines in the film that made me chuckle out loud. I had to go back because I was watching it late last night, working on stuff, and I forgot. I'm like, yeah, that's funny. I got to remember that. Well, sure
Okay.
enough, this morning it was not available to my memory at all. So I started looking at it again just to find. And I was walking around the house with headsets on, listening to the movie because I was listening for the dialogue,
Mm.
trying to find the piece. Anyway, How to Murder Your Wife, 1965, director Richard Quine, I guess Quine.
Yeah.
Probably more noticeable is the screenplay, which was done by uh, George Axelrod. Now,
Hmm.
George Axelrod had a pretty good history in terms of his work with films. Manchurian Candidate, he wrote that. Goodbye Charlie. I don't know if you remember that. It was a
Yes,
stage
that's a
play,
good
and
one.
it was a farce, with Debbie Reynolds and
Hmm.
Tony Curtis.
Yeah.
And then that was redone again. Just after that, they redid essentially the same movie, but it was a stage play first. He wrote that, and then also got writing credits for the movie when it came out. And then Breakfast at Tiffany's. He's
Oh, I
he's
didn't know that.
credited. Yeah, so I
Hmm.
recognized his name when I started going through this, and I thought, what else has he done? And he's done
Mm.
some really good authorship in terms of screenplays and movies that we're familiar with. So, yeah, I think the dialogue in this was pretty well written. I read a review of it, and somebody said, "So, laughing at women is funny now." And I was like, "Oh, um, yeah." Anyways, George Axelrod, pretty good. I do not have, and I should look this up. I should have looked it up before the show, but to see what Richard Quine has done, and he's a director and actor. He has done Bell Book and Candle. I don't know if you remember that.
Oh,
Um,
yes.
it
I
was
love that
his.
movie too.
Yeah, it was basically the the storyline around Bewitched in a way, the
Hmm.
TV show. But
Wasn't that Jimmy Stewart
Jimmy
and
Stewart,
Kim Novak?
yeah.
Yeah, right?
So his directorship includes The Specialists, um, and Columbo. He did three
Hmm.
episodes of Columbo.
Hmm.
Um, and we go back, How to Murder Your Wife, of course, Sex and the Single Girl. He was the director of that. Again with Tony Curtis and I forget her name. Um, it's great
Didn't
because I know
see.
people who are listening to this podcast. They're saying, "She's so and so, you dummy." When I say things like, "I forgot her name."
Yeah, I can't tell you who that is either.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to find out now. Damn it.
I know. Natalie Wood?
Natalie Wood.
Yeah.
Yeah, she plays in that movie. She plays like a Helen Gurley Brown, kind of an author,
Mm.
challenging, and I think it's pseudo based on that. So some interesting, folks who have kind of put this movie together, and I don't know, Jack Lemmon, Virna Lisi, Terry Thomas. This might be showing. This might be creepy, but I could not take my eyes off Virna Lisi. Any scene that she was in was
Gorgeous.
like, she's
She's
absolutely
gorgeous.
gorgeous.
Hmm.
So the synopsis is Stanley Ford, a successful cartoonist, um, and he lives kind of an exquisite life. He has Terry Thomas as his manservant, and he, he is working as essentially you're uncertain what he's working as when the movie starts, but he is working as a cartoonist. But it first appears like he's doing crime, and that's how he has gotten all his money. But what
Right.
he does in the movie is he sets up opportunities for him to act out his characters, his detective
Hmm.
or crime fighting characters' actions. So he goes out on the streets of New York and he does these stunts with other actors, and they shoot still photos of it. Terry Thomas shoots still photos of it, and then that becomes the frames for his cartoon.
Hmm.
Well, he is a confirmed bachelor as far as everyone's concerned, and winds up going to a bachelor party for someone who was supposedly engaged. And the groom shows up and announces that his fiance broke it off with him. So it turns into a drunken hullabaloo. Instead of a wake, it first looks like a wake,
Mm-hmm.
and in comes a cake. And I never quite understood why this was a thing, if it was a thing. But out from the cake comes Virna Lisi. So who? I mean, I just don't understand what that symbolism is of a girl coming out of a cake, and why that, if it was a thing, was a thing.
And it
I don't know.
reminded me of the scene from Some Like It Hot,
Like
but
it
that was
hot.
the gangster scene, when the gangster came out and shot everybody. I guess it's just, I don't know, they think she was going to be a stripper coming out of the cake. I don't know, or but
Oh,
she,
well.
I don't know.
Yeah, well, also a scene in, I believe in singing in the, also a scene in Singing in the Rain, where Debbie Reynolds is at a party and is a dancer, and I think they have a cake that somebody
Okay.
pops out of there. So I don't understand why. Again, maybe I am grown into a point where I'm concerned about how this objectifies women. But yeah. So Verna Lisi pops out of the cake. Drunken situation continues, and the next scene you see Jack Lemmon sort of in a fetal position in the corner, looking over at his bed, where there is a very what you can tell naked Virna Lisi, who has the sheets covered in all the wrong places. But it's quite clear that she had spent the night, and it's only later in this same scene that you find out she's wearing a wedding ring.
Mm-hmm.
So at that point, how does he keep his butler? Terry Thomas is like, I don't work for married couples. How does he keep his butler? How does he manage to deal with this? And he immediately wants a divorce. He's trying to talk to her, and then the secret is revealed. She's Italian. She understands no English whatsoever. And I won't go any
Yeah.
further at this point. I don't know if there are things that you want to say about that first part of the movie prior to the revelation that he's married to Verna Lisi.
Um, a couple of things I noticed. Terry Thomas. Um, did you notice in the beginning when he's kind of doing his monologue about this is Mr. Ford's house and this is Mr.
Yep.
Ford's shower and this is Mr. Ford's this and that. And he commented that he had a perfect life, perfect bachelorhood. But I think it was when he was outside watering the plants and he's looking around New York City and all you know, the high-rise buildings and the
Yep.
equipment and everything. And of course, their houses, he said, we don't worry about all the noise and everything from New York because our house is soundproofed. And he said, it really is a mad world. Did you catch that? He said, it's really a mad world.
No.
And he was in It's a Mad,
It's a
Mad,
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 mad
Mad
world.
World.
World. Yeah. That's a
Yeah.
film we should do sometime when we have
Yeah. That's a good
extra
one.
time. That's a great
Yeah.
film.
Yeah.
Yeah. The other thing about that, okay. I don't know if you'd call it a movie fetish that I have, but I'll be watching something on the screen and it'll be shot in an exterior shot in New York or in Los Angeles, and the
Hmm.
characters are talking, and you're getting a background shot of the city, and I will look for identifying buildings, or like
Hmm.
Rizzo's Pizza,
Hmm.
in Los Angeles. And then what I'll do is I will Google it, see if it still exists,
Okay.
then get the address, then go into Google Maps, sort of the
My God.
street scene, and
Oh, okay.
go and look for Rizzo's Pizza, and then look at it in the film and kind of look at what is at that location. You know, in the Blues Brothers. I'm from Chicago, so that's sort of gospel as far as we're
Right.
concerned. The building that completely collapses when the train goes by. Yeah, it's located. It actually used to locate in an area where I'd get off the L and go to work.
Hmm.
But now it's just, I don't even want to call it a park. It's an empty space between buildings with grass. And you can go to the current view and see that. So I'm always, it's my little movie media fetish, is trying to
Hmm.
go to the locations of the film. And I checked this one out. Sure enough, there is a site that is called, let me get this up here. Where is it? A site that's called on the set of New York.com. On the set of New York.com. And it has slash how to murder your wife.html for folks that are
Hmm.
interested. It has outside shots of the building that was his apartment, and current shots of the building. The building is still intact. They've done some changes around the door and the garage that he had, but yeah, it is
That's
at
interesting.
located, and then I put it in there. Stanley's Townhouse is 174 East 75th Street and Lexington Avenue in Manhattan. And
Hmm.
you can drop yourself on there and see that front
Oh,
facade
that's
and
cool.
how it's changed a little bit. In the movie, there are a couple of scenes, and I identified two, but I saw a third scene that are exterior shots of the townhouse, and a woman in a red skirt walks by.
Yep.
You probably found this in your search.
Twice. Right.
Twice. She walks by twice, and you can
Hmm.
even find where that is. Once when Terry Thomas is picking up the newspaper at the beginning,
Hmm.
and once at the as they're taking off to do their acting out of a scene. When they come out of the
Right.
garage, you can see that same woman walking by. There is a third one in there. I cannot find it. I tried to find it this morning. Same actress or extra, but in
I
a
know what you're
white
going to say.
coat.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Okay,
I
so
thought
you
the
found
same
that
thing.
too.
White or pink or there's I thought that's the
Yeah.
same girl. Yeah.
You could tell by the hairstyle, you could tell,
Hmm.
as she's walking past the front.
Yeah,
So
you're right. You're
they
right.
use the same extra. Wow. And I tried to find exactly where it was in the film just before we started recording and couldn't quite get it. So, yeah.
Going back to the building thing, did you notice, of course, at the end when he's, plotting to
Yeah.
so-called murder his wife, he dumps her. He's at the Tishman building. Where did I have
Oh,
that? The Tishman building is, and it was number 666.
yeah.
And I thought, well, that's very interesting because, here he is getting ready to murder her and he's dumping her off at a place called a number 666. But it was the
Yeah.
Tishman building.
I read some things around the
There
about
it
the
is.
buildings where it talks about all the skyscrapers when they do that pan, what actually was being
Hmm.
built at the time, and they found this
Hmm.
townhouse that was probably going to be swallowed by the building, the Tishman building, I guess, that is was
Yeah,
next
this was
door. I
on
don't.
Fifth Avenue, 666 Fifth Avenue.
Okay,
Yeah.
it's
And there was a
hard.
restaurant on the top floor called the Top of the Sixes. That was a
Oh
popular
yeah,
restaurant.
yeah.
Yeah, it
And
was
I
interesting.
think that was bought, and I think they changed the numbers on it.
Probably.
They changed the address numbers on it because that's
Probably.
not available. You know, it's very weird how there's a whole story here, there's a whole movie there, and we're talking about buildings and addresses.
I
But
know. I
that's
know.
that seems to be the little bit of trivia in there
Yeah.
in the movie. Um, okay, so now I think it's time to. I'm gonna. We have some. I have some more pictures. We can continue on with the story and the end. I'm going to ask you a question. Did you believe? And this is what I found less believable this time around. That he was really going to murder his wife?
No.
No.
No. No, he loved her.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
yeah. No,
Yeah.
he was never going to kill her.
I
Now, the
think he.
butler, he was the
Yeah.
one that concerned me. The butler was quite happy about the whole situation.
Well, yeah. At
He
the
was the one,
trial.
yeah, 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 he was
um.
happy about
Yeah. I think he. I think he loved being with her, and then that grew a little bit on him
it.
because obviously when she left. So the rest of the storyline is he sets up this complicated storyline where he gives his wife, Bash Brannigan's wife, a drug. Now, what's the name of the drug? I've got it here.
Oh, it was complicated.
Yeah, I know. That's why I wrote it down. Um, it is. I've got too many windows. It's
Yeah, that's it's like a Benny, but I don't know what it was really called.
it was alpha dexa benza thera pod alexa amine.
Okay.
And that's what your doctor, in the line, of course, that's what your doctor would call it. But seeing as I'm not your doctor, it's a goofball.
Right, a goofball.
So I did a little search on this and tried to find out if there is any drug similar to this. It's not. It's a made up drug.
Mm.
However, some of the components in it, the alpha dexta benza, indicate it's kind of close like a benzodiazepine or a
Mm-hmm.
Valium or
Mm-hmm.
a Xanax, for example. And of course they're fine. Just don't mix them with alcohol. So
Right.
he takes his wife to a party, or they throw a party actually
For a
at their
party. Yeah.
house, and he slips her the Mickey, and
Mhm.
she, as they go in the movie, she goes up, and then
Yeah.
plop, she goes down,
Plop.
and he takes her up, puts her in the bedroom, and then you realize he's just now staging this whole thing with the
Yeah.
mannequin that he takes out. And Terry Thomas is at a distance shooting the pictures, so he can't really tell what's going on. But he is shooting the pictures. And at that point, you want to say what happens next?
So after he disposes of her body, the mannequin's body, he comes back to the townhouse and he rejoins the party. And she's of course sleeping in the bed, and he writes his comic strip, and he falls asleep over it. And the next morning she wakes up, and you can tell she's hungover. She kind of gets up and ooh, her head, she can tell she's been drinking, and she sees her husband downstairs, and she goes down and, as she always does, goes up behind him and gives him a big kiss and is happy to see him. And she's looking over his comic strip, and all of a sudden she realizes that, oh, this is me. This is me in the comic strip, and he's planning to kill me. And she doesn't get angry. She gets very sad, and you can see she almost starts to cry, and she flips off her wedding ring, and she leaves it on the
The
easel where
drawing board.
his
Yeah.
drawing board where his comic strip is. And she picks up her little dog, and she apparently leaves all her clothes there because she leaves in her black raincoat and her black shoes, and I guess the bathing suit that she had
Suit
on because
underneath.
yeah, that was all she came with. And she picks up her little dog, and she hesitates just for a second at the top of the steps, like, should I do this? And then they show her running down the steps and out the door. And then, of course, he wakes up and finds that she's gone. And he says, well, I guess she went back to Italy. She went back with her mother. But then people start thinking,
Where is she?
yeah, they read that comic strip. It's like, well, where is she? And then they put together, the guy that he got the Mickey from, the goofball. He's like, oh yeah, he got that pill from me. And then the guy with the remote control switch, he puts it together, and they end up going to the police and saying, we think something's not right here, and we think that he really did kill her. And that sets the whole stage for him, going to jail and being framed for murder.
Yeah, and for me, the film has multiple parts, and that last part in the courtroom scene where he kind of there's a couple of things that happen. His lawyer's wife testifies against him, saying he never really liked her. Terry Thomas is called up and basically implicates him
Mm-hmm.
when the lawyer says, you really couldn't see whether it was the real Mrs. Ford or whether it was a mannequin. And Terry Thomas is like, he did it. He actually did it. And
Yeah.
he starts planning for, I'll move back in and blah, 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 blah. And Jack Lemmon is kind of
Right.
losing it. And I think his lawyer is kind of a bumbling idiot. And he gets
Yeah.
fed up with him and says, okay, I'm going to take over essentially the next day in court. He takes over his court
Mm-hmm.
testimony. So Jack Lemmon takes over as his own defense. And
Mm-hmm.
who does he put on the stand but his attorney, who's kind of a bumbling guy, and starts to challenge all of the aspects of what's so great about marriage and gives him the opportunity to fantasize whether or not how his life would be if he wasn't married, his
Mm-hmm.
attorney, and what all the possibilities he could have. This
Mm.
is where I started to feel a little bit, it's not I don't know. This film is, I would say that it's not supportive of marriage. At the same time, the moral of it is about the importance of it. And so, but this scene, I think, would get a lot of people upset around the issue of
Mm-hmm.
how
Mm-hmm.
the women are portrayed in a sense objectified, that they don't really serve a purpose. In fact, they get in the way of a lot of the purpose. But I think it's a really good example I think it's good writing. Um, and that's why I think that the courtroom scene is one of the best scenes in the film. I don't know
I
if you want to
agree.
pick it up from there about what
I
happens and
agree.
what does.
I wrote down some of the things that, while he was talking to Harold, his lawyer, he said, just think of all the things you could do. He asked him, like, how much money do you make? And I think he said like between 70 and 80,000, which is a good amount of money, even for, especially for back then. And he said, if you had that money and you didn't have to spend it on your wife and your children, he said, well, I could buy a Chris Craft. I guess that's some sort of a little boat.
Oh yeah, there's a whole
He said,
story behind that.
okay.
They were making wooden boats. You see some of these boats still around. They're basically all wooden, small, kind of, I don't know if you want to call them fishing boats. They're used for transportation.
Hmm.
And they're considered just beautiful wood form boats. And in this, Chris Craft had just moved into the fiberglass models of their stuff.
Okay.
And so
Okay.
getting one of those was very rare to be able to
Oh,
get at that time the movie was made. So that's a real cultural reference to
I
this kind
wondered
of
because
expensive little boat that
yeah, it was
had
so
a
specific.
history in wood and had just moved to fiberglass.
Hmm. Yeah, he specifically said, Chris Craft. And then there were superficial things like I could grow a mustache and, I could have a townhouse like you and I could have a butler. And then, of course, Jack Lemmon says, what about girls? Oh, yeah, I could have girls, all kinds of girls. There's his poor wife sitting in the courtroom. Of course, they portrayed her as a nothing but a nag,
Yeah.
and she's just horrified. And the other thing I thought was very interesting was there was not one woman on that jury.
Yeah. Well,
All
jury of
men,
your
all men.
peers.
Yeah, all men. And there are very few women in the courtroom too. In fact, when they, announced his the decision, and they all stood up and cheered and that he was not guilty. I looked at the women in the courtroom, the ones that were there, and they were all sitting there just staring straight ahead. They almost looked like they weren't real. They almost looked like mannequins. They were like
That was a
stone faced.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was a definite shot that the director
Oh.
made for the purpose of
Hmm.
comedic. That was like
Hmm.
all the men are dancing around and cheering and picking him up on his shoulders, and then
Yeah,
they do a shot of the
exactly.
women that are just sitting there
Yeah.
stone faced.
And you know
So
what
that
the
was
the thing I'm sorry.
no
The thing too I thought was so funny was, he drew a little white button with a piece of chalk, that he was supposed to
yeah.
push, push that button and, she'll just disappear. And at some point, when Harold got up from his attorney, got up from his seat and went over to the jury box where the button was, to push it, he was walking like he was in a daze, like he was almost like in a stupor or hypnotized, like he almost didn't know what he was doing. And he's walking over there, and Jack Lemmon saying, "Just push the button, just push the button." And his wife's like, "Don't you dare, Harold! Don't you dare push that button!" And of course, he's like,
And
"Push that button."
he
He's like,
keeps
"I
going back, and
did
he
it."
goes, "Nobody will ever know.
And nobody
Nobody will
ever
ever
know.
know."
Yeah,
Which was the catch for him to be able to
yeah.
do it. And
You
then
can
the
get away with
jury's
it.
comment was, "Boy, if we let this guy go, just
Yeah.
one guy,
Uh-huh.
that'll scare the hell out of my wife, that he
Yeah.
got away with it. We just one person gets away with it."
Yeah.
Something I noticed when I was watching the film, when he goes to draw the dot on
Hmm.
the bench, there is a very light circle that is on top of the wood. You'd have to go back and look at it, but I
Really?
saw this very
Okay.
light circle. I figured it was done for blocking. They had to put
Mm.
some cue on there to tell Jack Lemmon, draw this in this spot, because
Yeah.
that's where all the camera stuff would need to happen. So,
Right. Right. And what did that one guy say afterwards? The juror that was sitting right in the center. They zoomed in on him and he said something about what he would do
oh, I
if
can't
he,
remember.
what did he say? Because it was very,
He was going to travel somewhere, I think. Was that it? I could finally go to,
oh no, I'm sorry. That's going to bug me now.
well, you and the listeners will have to go back
I'm going to have to go
and
back and look that up because, yeah, they made a point of what he said.
yeah.
Oh, I don't know now. Yeah.
Um, we skipped over, I think, some photos, stills from the movie. I'm going to
Mm.
jump into that. But
Okay.
Virna Lisi coming out of the cake. And I think this is the last still that I have. This is, I think, during her dancing
On the
when she
piano.
on the piano. Yeah.
I tried so hard to find that painting that was
Oh,
behind. I tried and I tried, and I found some that it kept saying what it was and it wasn't what it was. And when Jack Lemmon's sitting or standing up against the wall watching her, and they have that shot of him with the painting directly above him, he has the same expression on his face that the
yeah.
painting does. He's like, just, And I thought, okay, what was that painting? He looked to me like an old master's of some kind, but I couldn't find it. I could find some that were similar, but I couldn't find it.
Uh, I am looking at this right now, and I am not finding it either. Um, that. Thanks for reminding me of that. That scene stood out for me when I watched it the second
Mm,
time. That he had captured the expression of what the painting was. It looked a
yeah.
little bit like a Rembrandt or some
Yes.
that sort of style. There's a very sort of Dutch style
Yeah.
to the painting, but I couldn't find it.
I thought.
Out of
And that,
curiosity, if Harold was making $80,000 in 1965, his salary today would be 822,000.
oh, wow.
So it would have been
Wow.
10 times the salary.
Wow. He's
So
an attorney. Yeah.
yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. And that same pose that Jack Lemmon had, he was standing there with his feet like, did you notice his feet were like way far apart,
Yeah.
propped up against the wall? And he had that same pose at the bachelor party. He and the judge, when they were on opposite walls from one
Oh, okay.
another. You remember that? They showed his feet. It
Yeah.
was like a black and white floor, and his feet were on the black squares. And it's like he was standing with his feet so far apart, and so was the judge, like they were holding up the wall. And I thought that was another funny part where the judge came over to him and said, "Can I be of any assistance?" And Jack said, "Well, no, you're not in any shape to help me." He said, "You're gassed or you're, drunk or something." And the judge says, "Oh no, I'm as sober as a judge."
I got to tell you, my favorite line, and this kind of made me laugh out loud. The statement came from Charles, his butler, and it says,
Mhm.
"Doesn't speak English." And yet, on the other hand, if one will go around marrying persons who pop out of cakes, it's
Thanks.
bound to be, well, rather catch as catch can. Uh, so yeah, that one made me kind of laugh out loud
Yeah.
on watching it a second time. So
And for me, it was just a very, very small part of it. But, you know, when he first wakes up and she's in the bed and he doesn't realize she's Italian. And he's saying, we're going
yeah,
to get, don't worry about it. We'll handle it. We'll get a quickie divorce and, I'll take care of you and you'll get a settlement. And she's just looking at him like she has no idea what he's talking about. And when she finally speaks, all this Italian is coming out of her
just
mouth so quickly.
yeah,
It's just
quickly,
like,
and then you realize
yeah.
this is pretty
And he looks
pretty
at her and
wild.
goes, "My God, you're Italian."
And then he does what most people do who don't understand foreign language. He talks
Yeah.
louder, slower,
Yeah.
and he uses what is probably insulting dialect.
Yes.
It's sort of an, if I
Um,
just say it in
you speak
English and
of,
put some O's on the end of it, then she'll
uh-huh.
understand what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
Uh,
you don't speak a lot of English.
yeah.
Oh yeah. Thought that was
So
funny.
yeah,
God, you're Italian.
there are some good. Yeah, my God, you're Italian. And she doesn't seem to get it at first. Her expression kind of stays the same,
Yeah.
and it's like I don't. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the three main characters,
Okay.
uh, and then maybe the ending.
Okay.
So why don't we start with Terry Thomas? He's the first person we see. I've seen a few films with him in it. You mentioned one in terms
Mhm.
of It's a Mad, 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 Mad World. Um,
Right.
I think his expressions and his delivery of lines was better. This was more of a stretch for him, where he just wasn't only doing slapstick, that he had to do some outer motions that we never necessarily see him in. And I appreciated his acting in this film probably better than I had the previous times I've seen it. He did deliver some really great lines that were,
Mhm.
that were laugh-inducing, but he also had to kind of play the butler who wasn't going to stand for this, and get packed and walked out, and and go work for someone else. It was just, I thought his character was interesting in that way.
I agree. I like the kitchen scene where previously she had all those things delivered to the townhouse.
Yeah,
They kept
yeah,
ringing the doorbell, and he's like, "Delivery?" And they brought up all that food, and he's like, "Oh, okay." And he's trying to keep um, Jack Lemmon on a diet and keeping him at his weight of 160 pounds. And she's in the kitchen cooking this big Italian dinner of spaghetti sauce, and he's on the opposite side. I thought that was interesting.
yeah,
He's grating carrots, and he's looking at her like, he's so mad at her because he's trying his best to keep him trim.
yeah,
And he comes home, and what does he like? Jack Lemmon likes the spaghetti sauce, and
yeah.
and then the butler gets mad and storms out, and it's like the war of the two of them between them. Who's
Yeah,
going
and
to win
there's
him
a
over?
nonverbal that happens when he kind of
Mhm.
stops grating carrots, and then he looks over,
Yeah,
and then she
right.
looks at him with kind of a sneer on her face, and he goes back to grating
Yes.
carrots again.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
That was a good interaction, I thought. Yeah.
Jack
Yeah,
Lemmon.
I enjoyed him.
Yeah, what are your thoughts on his character?
Jack Lemmon?
Yeah,
Um, well, I do agree with you that it was very much a misogynist kind of role. There wasn't a whole lot of depth to it. Um, the one part I enjoyed was his comedic ability to fall and get back
yeah,
up. Yeah, he was very good. I don't know if that was improvised or what how that happened when he was standing up against that wall and he kind of slipped and fell down. That was kind of like a Cary Grant kind of thing. He was like, "Whoops," and he got right
yeah.
back up. You know.
Um,
Um, Go ahead.
yeah. I was going to say, he had just come off The Apartment,
Oh
and
yeah. Oh,
critics
that's a
were
good
pretty
movie.
high on him in terms of The Apartment. And I think people saw this as kind of a step back into slapstick comedy,
Hmm.
versus already getting some critical acclaim for his acting chops in The Apartment, being able to show pathos and stuff. He
Hmm.
did a little bit of stretching in this, which I thought, well, they there was a lot of over the top kind of action that he was doing during, and I don't mean action movie, but uh, acting that he did for his role of kind of self-centered bachelor, confirmed bachelor, well-off cartoonist. He played that to the hilt. But there are these
Hmm.
moments where you see him looking at Virna Lisi, and you see kind of the changes in his face that is probably the more engaged around the relationship that you see him.
Hmm.
I think he's still trying to figure it out, even to the end of the film.
Right.
Not that he doesn't see this not lasting. He just needs to figure out how we're going to be as a couple now that we've accepted we're going to be as a couple.
Hmm.
So yeah. Did you hear the story about Verna Lisi's husband?
I did.
You want to tell it, and then I did some detective work on it.
Okay, let me just find it here. Yeah, apparently, and this story came about. Jack Lemmon told this story on the Johnny Carson show.
Mm-hmm.
That I read that during the film, Virna Lisi's husband, um, she promised him that she would not do a nude scene. This was her first American film, and she promised him she would not be nude in it. And in that opening scene, she's not nude, but yet you know that
Yeah.
she's not wearing
The
anything under that sheet, so she might as well be. And so that very first scene, he shows up to the set, and he's just, I guess, very angry, and he's not what he expected because she promised him that she wouldn't do that, and he takes off after Jack Lemmon. And what I heard was that he took off after Jack Lemmon, and he's chasing him around the set, and that he jumped into a garbage dumpster. Jack
He
Lemmon
ran
did.
across, yeah, he ran across the production studio
Yeah.
different
Well,
places and wound up
yeah.
hiding in a dumpster until
Right.
they found him, and the security
Security
found
found him.
him and said it's safe to come out. We've got him
Yeah.
off the thing. So
Yeah.
that begged me to wonder, how long did this marriage last? And so I
Verna Lisi's
looked
marriage.
Virna Lisi's marriage.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I thought,
That he was jealous.
this is a prediction that it's not going to last long. She stayed with him all of his life. I mean, they were
Really?
together for, I don't know, maybe another 30 years or
Wow.
so until he died. So,
Wow.
the whole idea that she says in the movie, Italians don't divorce,
Yes.
could have been the
That was one of the
situation.
quotes I wrote down.
Yeah.
She said, no divorce and no divorces. She couldn't understand a word of English, but she knew what no divorce meant.
Yeah. So that was
Yeah.
an interesting piece there. And there's not a lot of side stories on this movie, which we get from a lot of
Mm-mm.
other movies that we've
No,
seen.
no.
So, what's your take on Virna Lisi?
Well, besides the fact that she's gorgeous, um, I thought sorry, my computer's weird here. I enjoyed her in that role, and she didn't speak for, my gosh, how long into that movie? I mean, you didn't even
Yeah.
hear her until like what, half an hour into the movie. Um, the one part I thought was a little bit odd was, how she picked up the English pretty quickly. Part of it came from Harold's wife Edna, that she
Yeah.
could learn English from her because Edna spoke Italian. But what I thought was funny where the scene where she was watching TV late at night, and Jack Lemon's trying to sleep, and he even has like an eye mask over his eyes, and he's trying his best to sleep. And she's sitting in bed with a loaf of bread, and she's always eating in bed. She's got the little dog with her, and she's watching late night TV. And she's got the sound turned way up, and she's watching. One time it was a Western, and she wakes him up and she says, Stanley, Stanley. She says, I forget. Are the good guys, do they wear white hats or they wear
That sort of.
black hats? And she's asking him all these stupid questions, and he's trying to sleep. And the one time she wakes him up and he has a headache, and she kind of spouts off something she must have seen on a commercial about,
It was a commercial. I
yeah,
think either
the
for
headache remedy.
Alka-Seltzer
Oh,
or
I
for
can fix
aspirin. It's
that
like,
in,
yeah, 3 steps,
yeah,
fast,
three
fast,
steps. I
fast.
can fix that in 3 steps. I thought, oh my gosh, she picked up her English pretty darn quickly. Um, but I love the typical Italian, cooking all that food, and the day
Yeah.
she brought him the lunch and set it down, a huge tray of all that food, and she said, lunch, lunch. And he's like, oh my gosh. But that's typical Italian. No, I thought she played the part really well. I enjoyed it.
So, final scene, he wins in court, but
Hmm.
he kind of loses his heart because she's not around. And he comes home with Charles, his butler, after telling Charles, I really miss her. That's the thing. And
Yeah.
Charles says, but if she comes, he goes, I hope she never comes back. He goes, oh no, I want her to come back. And
Hmm.
Charles is like, well, if she does, they can't try you for the same crime twice.
Right. Right.
And um, they come home, and her clothes are kind of strewn on the stairwell, and he realizes that she's returned. Um,
Or
Charles
black
tries to
shoes.
offer him a gun.
Yeah. Yeah. Even loads it.
Yeah. And he pushes it aside and then goes up in the room. And um, it's a touching scene at that point, I think, where they
Hmm.
reconnect. She's like, you got to put the ring on my finger if we're going to reconnect that
Yes.
way.
That was
And
interesting. He just
Charles,
happened to have it in his pocket.
yeah, yeah, that was weird. I was like,
Yeah, just happened to have that wedding ring right there in his pocket. Hmm.
yeah, took it to trial with him apparently, and he's
Hmm.
been carrying it around. Um, but then Charles is like, oh well, what am I going to do? And he goes into his room, and Virna Lisi's mother is there, and they do this weird shot by shot in the scene where they keep getting closer and closer and closer to each other's eyes, and they keep going back and forth between
Hmm.
the eyes of the mother and the eyes of Charles. And then he quietly goes over and closes the door, um, meaning he's kind of succumbed to it too. He kind of shrugs his shoulders and closes the door and smiles at the camera, breaks the fourth wall
Right.
in doing that. I noticed, and I noticed this, I think, the other times I've seen this, the actress that's playing Virna Lisi's mother really looks like an older Virna Lisi.
Yes.
In and it was like, okay, that's believable. That's her mother. That's
Hmm.
probably the right
Hmm.
age for her mother.
Yeah.
And it looks like her mother. So,
Well, in the beginning of the movie, at one point, she said she was going to bring her mother
yeah,
to live with them. I remember her saying that. And he's like, what? You're going to bring your mother? And also, you're right, when they were showing the two of them looking at one another, it was the same thing as when Verna Lisi
I
popped
see.
out of the cake and the eyes with Jack Lemmon. Their eyes met and they did the same thing. And then they also showed she had a little gap in her teeth,
Yeah,
same as the butler, and they went back and forth and showed that
between the
in their
gaps.
teeth.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I gotta give that the critics were not kind to Virna Lisi in this film. I thought she
Hmm.
did remarkably well in the film. Her actions, her movements, her attention to Jack Lemmon, even at the points where she doesn't understand what's going on,
Mhm.
and as she gets more acquainted with English and they communicate more, she is doing that cultural shift, and so I thought her role was well portrayed by her, but critics were, well, then there's Verna Lisi. Um, and they might have minimized her role because she pops out of a cake and she's really a stunningly attractive woman.
Right.
Um, and so I think she got less of what was attended to from the critics than what she deserves.
Yeah. Did you ever find out? I tried really hard, and I don't know if it's right. The mother never was credited in the cast.
I
Who
didn't look for
was
that.
her mother? I did, and I found a picture. Um, I don't know if it's right. They said her name was Teresa Tudor. I should pull that back. I should have saved that. And it kind of fits. I forget she was from Argentina, I believe. And if you,
Yeah.
it said something about she was in Bewitched in one of the episodes too, as a countess or something. But um, I don't know if you can find that or not. But it fits the timeline and everything. But she was never credited with the role at all. I mean, she was only in that very last scene, but I could. There was never any credit for her. It's Teresa Tudor, Tudor.
Yeah,
Teresa
I'm
with
looking
a
that up.
Teresa.
And if I go to her website, if I go to her IMDb page,
Yeah.
um, is she even does that credit? Because sometimes it doesn't come up in the movie, but then it comes up in
No, I just
the
Googled
actors.
actress. Yeah.
Yeah. Nope, doesn't show on her page either. So,
Yeah, there's one
um,
where if you Google Teresa Tudor actress, there's a picture of her with
right.
Bewitched, and boy, that sure is her.
Yeah, that's what I did, and then saw the picture, but then also uh, tried to go to her IMDb page.
Mm-hmm. Says, oh, there is. She was from Argentina. She was born on July 4th, 1921.
And died in 2015, which is interesting because I think Virna Lisi, she passed on recently. Uh, 2014. So
Hmm.
Virna Lisi died a year before her mother did, at least
Mhm.
her acting mother in this film.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything more to say on this?
Let me just look here. We talked about yeah, the mad world. Um, Harold, his attorney.
Yeah.
I thought his voice was unusual, a little bit exaggerated.
Yeah,
And I
I
heard
got
that
to.
he
Yeah, go
kind
ahead.
of modeled it after Mr. Howe from Gilligan's Island. If you think about him,
You
and you
know,
go back and listen to him.
yeah, he's Eddie Mayehoff, is the
Hmm.
actor, and I've seen him in other stuff. Um,
Yes, I have too, but I
and
couldn't.
he uses that same. I mean, that sort of goes with his face in other things that he's in. He
You're
when his
right.
face comes on, you can kind of predict what sound his voice is going to be when it comes out of his mouth.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Uh, wow, I'm looking at some of the stuff that he's done, and I'm surprised with what's listed here that I'm familiar with him as a character actor because these are
Hmm.
things that I wouldn't have normally watched. But yeah, yeah, I think he was chosen for that character act and the ability to kind of bumble because that voice and that face goes with the bumble. One of the
Yeah.
things I recognized was when Vernon Lisi's in his office with the rest of the crew. First of all, he sits down and she takes off her coat, revealing her swimsuit underneath. And he kind of look. They do a shot
Oh
on him.
yeah.
He kind of looks and he goes, "Oh yeah, you know, why
Hmm.
do you want to divorce this?" Um,
Yep.
so
You're
yeah,
right.
that was. And then there was another actress which we've seen for years in a variety of shows. Like Christmas. She's in it, and she is Mary Wicks.
Yeah.
She from 1910 to 1995, so she had a good long
Yeah. Yeah.
life.
We've
But
talked
we've
about
seen
her
her.
before.
Yeah, yeah, we've
She was
seen
in
her in a
Dennis the
lot.
Menace. She was in Andy Griffith. Yeah.
Sister Act 2. Um Let me see what she's. White Christmas, Hunchback of Notre Dame.
Mm.
That was in 1996, so it must have been the animated version, and also Sister Act. But she is a
Mm,
very familiar character
yeah,
actress
yeah.
um, that you'll see pop out. She played the secretary, Harold's secretary, who got
Mm.
considerably smashed
She
over
did, sitting on the floor crying.
sitting on the floor drinking and crying, or I don't know what it was, but
Yes, she
tears of
was.
joy, or
Probably,
she
I'm
was,
thinking, was she an old maid and she was like, why isn't it me? Or I don't, they never
yeah,
said, but I wondered, like, why isn't it my turn? Okay, so one other thing that I didn't catch till I watched it the second time. In the beginning of the movie, the butler goes over and picks up those gold high heels from the couch.
yeah,
It's apparent that, he had someone stay overnight, and we didn't really know who it was. Um, and he had put the butler, he puts those shoes away like in a little compartment. He
yeah.
must have like a little drawer, and he puts them in there. And when Jack Lemmon's getting ready to go to the bachelor party, he pulls them out of the drawer and he says, "Do you think she might need them for the wedding?" And Jack Lemmon
Oh,
says, "Oh, no, I think not." And she actually appears at the end of the movie when they're having the
right,
party at their house.
yeah,
And Jack Lemmon's taking Virna Lisi up the stairs after she, gets drunk and falls off the piano. And this woman appears and she says, and she's holding the gold shoes in her hand. And she said, "I have been looking all over for these." And Jack Lemmon looks at her and he says, "Mrs. Ford," his wife, of course, is over his shoulder. He
yeah.
said, "Mrs. Ford, this is Miss James. Miss James, this is Miss Ford." And he goes up the stairs. So she was the one that was supposed to marry Toby that broke off the
Right.
engagement.
I didn't catch that. That's a great
Yeah,
catch.
yeah,
Um, I did, it seemed like he had a lost and found drawer that he would put
yeah,
things in.
yeah,
Charles would put things in when he cleaned up the next
yeah.
morning, not
So
expecting
maybe
them to be
Jack Lemmon
around,
was the
apparently.
reason. Maybe he was the reason that she didn't marry him. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know if it happened. Well, yeah, we have no,
We don't know.
or
But they
she,
were her
or
shoes.
Miss James was just decided that she wanted to live the free life without being tied
Mm-hmm.
down into domestication. Who knows?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I
Well,
caught that the second.
I feel better talking about the movie after we talked about the movie than I
Oh,
didn't know
good.
how we would walk into this today. I don't think it's going to be something I'll sit down and watch with my wife. Uh,
Well,
yeah, she's. I mean, she probably would like Mad Men, but I don't know if she'd like this movie. So we'll see.
I also thought the scene when she tracks him down at the club, that
Hmm.
all male club. We actually have one of those in Chambersburg. It's called the
Really?
Chambersburg Club. And it's still there and there are no women allowed. And I had a friend years and years ago, she and her husband were going through a divorce, and she got so mad at him because she said, "I can't," and she literally would be following him and trying to track him down. And she said, "I get so mad when," I won't say his name, she said, "he goes to the club," and she said, "I can't get a hold of him there." That was the only place he could go to get away from her.
We've seen that meme in other movies too,
Hmm.
where women are not allowed to pass through doors of certain places. And, that's a
Hmm.
larger metaphor for what's going on. I just remember when I was a kid, there, where we vacationed in Wisconsin, there was a bar called Your Husband's Not Here.
Oh,
And so I guess
uh-huh.
my fantasy is somebody calls up and they pick up the phone and they say, Your husband's not here. Um,
Right, right.
so,
Like at the club, he's in the gymnasium.
right. Yeah.
That's a lot. He's in the gymnasium. I
Yeah.
think they
And I
did that
think,
too in Trading Places
yeah.
with Eddie Murphy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, they did.
That's one that I was thinking of too. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's a good
I
one.
have a, um, you reminded me of the scene at the club. And I'm trying to figure out if the men are shocked because there's a woman there, or they're shocked because there's someone that looks like Virna Lisi there, because she is
Yeah.
fully dressed up
Oh,
in
yeah.
that scene. And
Yeah.
and I was kind of shocked at the level of and this might be the neckline in a lot of her outfits were really kind
Hmm.
of low for 1965, 64. I
Yeah.
thought,
Yes.
wow.
The piano scene, she kept bending over. I thought, okay. But it was, I guess there was an undergarment underneath that
Yeah.
held everything in. But I thought the same thing. It was, yeah.
It was a little, yeah, for that time. But God bless her husband. She didn't do a nude scene. Uh, all right. So, what movie are we doing next?
We're going to do a Christmas movie, Miracle on 34th Street.
And the one with Maureen O'Hara
Yes.
and Ed Gwynn. I think it's not Ed
Yes.
Gwynn. Yeah, sure enough, it is Ed
Mm,
Gwynn.
okay.
And I've always appreciated him as an actor. You see him show up in a bunch of other stuff.
Hmm.
But this is kind of a seminal Christmas one. We've had Richard Attenborough play Santa in this role in Miracle on 34th Street, came out sometime in the 90s, I believe. But this has Maureen O'Hara, also John Payne, and Natalie Wood as a very young
Natalie
Natalie Wood,
Wood.
trying to be convinced
Yes.
that Santa exists. So we'll take a look at that film next time that we're around. I like
Good.
these conversations. Sometimes I wish I had more sleep before we had these conversations because my short-term memory is really bad when I
Uh,
don't have a lot of sleep.
oh,
So,
that's all right.
but I appreciate your
That's what notes are
patience, and
for.
I appreciate the people who are listening to this that they get to suffer through my memory lapses and too much going on my screen to find the stuff that I put up. Thanks for joining us for another episode of Fade to Chat Golden Age Cinema. Don't forget to subscribe. Subscriptions are nice. You know, if you don't look at us, we still got your subscription. So you'll know when the next episode is coming out. You can leave a comment. You can email us at thepodtalknetwork@gmail.com and maybe suggest a film that you'd like us to do from the Golden Age. Or maybe you have some comments, you have some questions, or maybe we said something wrong and you want to straighten us out. We'll
Mhm.
take email. That's all
Awesome.
fine and good. The podtalknetwork@gmail.com. You can find the YouTube channel at youtube.com/@fade to chat. And there you can find all the previous episodes that we've done and maybe a movie or two that's one of your favorites that we've already covered that you can listen to. So thanks for joining us on this. And join us next time as we explore more films that shape